Hello, my name is Georgianne Ford with the Alpha Center for Divorce Mediation, and we have one of our attorney mediators returning today, Mike Ruth. Welcome back, Mike.
Hi, Georgianne.
Hi. And Mike, you're going to hit on a topic today that's good. I definitely pique interest because you have lived through it, having to do with family preservation and how that affects extended family members and funnels down. So looking forward to what you are going to share with us today.
Thanks, Georgianne, and Happy New Year to you and to everybody listening today. I was, as I was driving over to the office this morning, I was thinking about this topic a little bit and how humbling it is to be able to share a little bit of this, because I know 10 years ago when I started, when I found out that I was getting divorced, I certainly wasn't in the place that I am now. So I'm blessed that not only can I help people through our practice here at the Alpha Center, but I can also share my experience as well, on how my family has developed, over the past 10 years. At the Alpha Center for Divorce Mediation, one of our main goals is family preservation. We really feel that people come to us looking to preserve that family, and they are acting in the best interest. And our goal is really to set mom and dad up individually so they can move forward and continue that relationship with their children and that parenting relationship with each other. You hear that term co-parenting a lot.
Right.
That's what this is all about, being able to communicate and get along so your children don't continue to see the fighting and the garbage that goes along with it.
What's the first step with that co-parenting? How do we get there?
So one of the first things that we do here at the Alpha Center is that we have a parenting mediation. Now that's not done with the attorney; it's done with a licensed professional that works in the child psychology field. So they just have a better idea about what the best interest of the children are. When you look at us as attorneys, my knowledge with that is basically on what I know from being a dad, and I make mistakes all the time when I'm being a dad. So we do that with a parenting mediator, and what they do is that they sit down with the couple, and really what they're trying to do is put together a parenting schedule. So the custody schedule, where they're going to be during the days of the week, where they're going to be on the holidays, and then they also go through and include some very important suggestions on how this is going to work. One of the overlying topics that I'm going to keep talking about, and I know that we've talked about this in previous our previous video blogs, is communication. Right? Communication is key, and I say that over and over and over again in mediation, because I have just found that out through my experience as well. You have to be able to communicate with the other party. And you have to be upfront and honest and sincere about what you're doing with your children. So you sit down with the parenting mediator. The parenting mediator ultimately drafts a parenting agreement, and that parenting agreement works as your custody agreement. So we do our best to keep it out of court, and we basically recommend for the parents to follow that schedule. We also recommend that they attend a couple of co-parenting therapy sessions. That's always beneficial, just to get some recommendations from other people as well. So then what I get to do is I get to share my experiences with my clients as well, because they're at a point where it's very difficult. That they've come to the realization that the marriage is going to end. They're probably still living together, which is difficult. They probably don't like each other too much at the time, and they're just doing their best, right, to continue to show up for their children. So, I start out with just basically, looking back 10 years ago when this happened to me. I'm not going to say that I was very excited to see my ex-wife, and during the holidays it was difficult, but from the very beginning, what we did is kind of set aside those individual feelings. Despite the fact that I didn't want to pick up the phone and let her know what I was doing, I did. And she did the same thing. And that's kind of how it started. So, year one, you're just working through this because it's all new. And as long as you keep taking the action, you begin to see the results. And you know, like I said, right now I can reflect back over 10 years of doing this, and I'm in a lot better position. And what I found out is that because we continue to work together and communicate and basically help each other out, right? When one person wasn't able to do something, the other person picked up the slack, and vice versa. You know, if there was financial issues, we tried to work them out. When it came to our children, if they only talked to one of us individually, we would make sure that the other parent knew what they were, you know, what their feelings were, what their thoughts were, because, you know, our children now kind of go to us for different things. I'm more the financial guy when it comes to expenses and in college and things like that. And my ex-wife is the emotional support because, you know, normally that's, you know, what moms are there for. So, but I never neglect to not let her know about what they tell me, and she does the same thing for me. So that just helps us with the co-parenting. So because we've worked together, we've been able to navigate some of the very difficult things, like you know, shared holidays, right? We've been, because of the examples that we've set with each other, our extended families have welcomed the other party into their homes. You know, I've spent Christmas at her dad's house, being divorced, like after our divorce, and been welcomed by that family because he knows that we get along. And so as I sit here today, you know, because of that communication, when we got divorced for a reason, you know, it wasn't working, right? But 10 years later, because of all those conversations over the years, we are friends now. And it's not a friendship that, you know, is looking for to reunite the marriage, but I have a friend that is the mom of my children. And that's a reward that I've received from this. Also, at the same time, my kids are older now, they're adults, and they've definitely recognized what mom and dad did over the past 10 years to get to this point. You know, they saw the examples in their friends where those parents didn't get along in the way that those children suffered. And then they were able to look back at their own experience and were like, well, you know, mom and dad, you know, continue to communicate and do for us, and we're always there throughout all these years, and they put a value on that. They understand now that just because a relationship ends, it doesn't mean that the family has to be split up. And I think that's been a pretty good lesson, you know, for them as well, that they can carry on. So, you know, like I said, my experience is that this stuff works. You know, at the beginning, it doesn't seem like it's going to be, and you might not want to share those first couple of years of holidays together. You know, that does take some time, but I firmly believe that if you continue to communicate and work together, which is basically built on the base that you established when you divorced, right? That communication that you were doing in the tough times, that as you move forward, you're going to be there for your children's graduation, for the weddings, for the birth of your grandkids, and you're going to be able to do this together, rather than, you know, having to worry about who's going to show up, right? And you hear that all the time. Well, I'm not going because this person's going to be there. Well, I don't, you know, I'm free of that worry today.
Like just a couple of thoughts that with what you're saying. One thing you brought up that seems to be very important is you had real focus on the outcome. It sounds like you and your ex had on, we want this no matter what. And I think that sounds like that would be very valuable to preserve the family. And the other thing that I heard you say was actions, and you were taking, it took work. It didn't just happen.
Right. Right. And that's another thing, Jordan, that I definitely share with my clients too, that I don't have any magical dust that I'm going to sprinkle on them to make this work. It's just going to take some time, and it's going to take some cooperation. And you really have to set aside those personal feelings. Yes, you can, you know, we did our best not to say anything about each other in front of the kids in the early stages.
That's a good
right?
start.
You know, go talk to your friends and say whatever you want, get it out then. But when you come back and you're around your family, you know, you just keep your mouth shut. You know, they it was very important that they respected their mom, and she felt that way about me too. So
I think this is what led you to be on the side of mediation, as opposed to doing all the litigation, because of your own experience and the value you put on that.
Right. It's, I've colleagues that do litigation, and families get ripped apart. I mean, family court is not a nice place, especially when the kids are showing up there. And what we try to do in mediation is avoid all that. And the best thing about it, Georgianne, is that a lot of our clients have that intention when they come to us for mediation. They are concerned about that. That's one of the first things that they express. Not necessarily there because they're worried about it. They're going to get an extra 5% of the marital assets. They're there because they're concerned about their children and how that looks for the future. And we really feel at the Alpha Center that we give people the opportunity to preserve that family. And at the same time, we're also going to put you in a position when you divide those assets to be able to do that individually. I always caution people too that you don't necessarily win with the division, but at the same time, you're going to be able to survive and take care of your children at the same time.
Wow, this is very helpful. What I'm seeing is, and anybody out there, if we do need help to get through this transition, and how much help you can actually provide based on your experience, but also the work that's done at the Alpha Center for Divorce Mediation. So if any of you have any questions for Mike personally, for anybody at the Alpha Center, please give us a call. We'd be happy to help you and answer those questions and get you started on this transition. Anything else you want to add?
No, Georgianne, like I said, it's I'm very fortunate that I'm able to share, my experience in what I do professionally, and give people, because they walk in there and they look at you like this is never going to work. And I can tell them that it does, right? I know for certain that it does work. Just stick to it. So
that's great.
Thanks for being here with me today. Thanks for letting me share my experience with you.
Thank you for sharing. That number to call, 1-800-310-9085.